The church bells tolled, each chime a hammer against Ethan's heart. He stood at the altar, his tuxedo crisp, his hands trembling as he adjusted his tie for the 10th time. In less than an hour, he'd be married to Sarah, the woman everyone said was his perfect match, but why did his chest ache like it was caving in? The pews filled with smiling faces, their chatter a dull roar in Ethan's ears. He forced a smile, nodding at his parents in the front row, their pride practically glowing. Sarah was in the bridal suite, radiant in white, her laughter floating through the open window. She was everything he'd been told he should want: kind, beautiful, steady. Yet, as the organ began its prelude, Ethan's mind wasn't on her. It was on a summer 5 years ago, on a boy with blonde hair and a reckless grin who'd turned his world upside down. Ethan had sworn he was straight. He'd told himself that summer was a fluke, a fleeting confusion born of too many late nights and too much cheap beer. Caleb had been a wildfire brash, unapologetic, and dangerously alive. They'd met at a community college art class in Portland, Oregon, where Ethan was trying to find himself after high school. Caleb, with his paint-stained jeans and a laugh that could stop traffic, had been the TA. One late-night critique session turned into coffee, then long drives along the coast, then stolen kisses under starlit skies. Ethan had felt alive, electric, in a way he hadn't known was possible. But when Caleb confessed he was falling in love, Ethan panicked. He wasn't that guy. He couldn't be. "I'm not gay," Ethan had said, voice shaking, as Caleb's face crumpled. This was just a mistake. He'd left Caleb standing in the rain outside their favorite diner. His silhouette burned into Ethan's memory. Ethan moved back to his hometown, cut contact, and buried that summer deep. He met Sarah at a church picnic, and she was safe, predictable. She fit the life he was supposed to live. So why, as the wedding march loomed, did he feel like he was drowning? The church doors swung open, and Ethan's breath caught. Not because of Sarah, but because of the figure slipping into the back pew. Caleb. His blonde hair was shorter now, his frame leaner, but those piercing blue eyes hadn't changed. They locked onto Ethan's, and the room spun. 5 years vanished in a heartbeat, and Ethan was back in that diner parking lot, rain soaking his shoes, heart screaming to stay. Caleb didn't move, didn't wave. He just sat there, hands clasped, watching. Ethan's best man, Jake, nudged him, whispering, "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." Ethan nodded, throat tight, but he couldn't tear his eyes away. What was Caleb doing here? After all this time, why now? The organ swelled, and Sarah's silhouette appeared at the end of the aisle. The congregation stood, their murmurs fading into a reverent hush. She was stunning, her smile soft and trusting. Ethan's heart pounded, not with joy, but with dread. He glanced back at Caleb, who hadn't moved, his expression unreadable. Ethan's mind raced. He'd built a life on denying who he was, on convincing himself he could be the man everyone expected. But Caleb's presence was a crack in that facade, and the truth was seeping through. As Sarah took her first step down the aisle, Ethan's knees buckled. He gripped the altar rail, his vision blurring. He'd sworn he was straight, but every fiber of his being screamed otherwise. The weight of his lie pressed down, suffocating. He couldn't do this. Not to Sarah, not to himself. But what could he do? Run. Confess. Ruin everything he'd built. The answer came in a single, reckless moment. Ethan's eyes met Caleb's again, and something inside him snapped. He stepped forward, away from the altar, his voice barely a whisper. "I can't." The congregation gasped. Sarah froze, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Ethan's mother clutched her pearls, his father's face reddening. But Ethan didn't care. He was moving, legs carrying him down the aisle, past Sarah's stunned expression, past the whispers and stares, toward the one person who'd ever made him feel whole. Caleb stood as Ethan approached, his jaw tight, eyes searching. "Ethan," he said, voice low, "what are you doing?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted, his voice breaking. "But I can't keep pretending." They stood inches apart, the church silent except for the faint hum of the organ. Ethan's world narrowed to Caleb's face, to the freckles he'd once traced with his fingertips, to the lips he'd kissed under a sky full of stars. He'd spent 5 years running from this. But now, standing here, he realized there was no running anymore. "Ethan." Sarah's voice cut through, sharp and trembling. He turned, guilt crashing over him. She deserved better than this. She deserved the truth. But as he opened his mouth to speak, Caleb's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that sent fire through his veins. Ethan knew, in that moment, that his life was about to change forever. He took a deep breath, facing Sarah, the congregation, and the truth he'd buried for too long. "I'm sorry," he said, voice steady despite the chaos in his heart. "I can't marry you. I'm not who I've been pretending to be." The church erupted in murmurs, but Ethan didn't hear them. He turned back to Caleb, whose eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You came back," Ethan whispered. Caleb's lips twitched into a small, sad smile. "I never left." The chaos in the church was a living thing, a wave of gasps and whispers crashing over Ethan as he stood frozen, Caleb's hand still brushing his. Sarah's bouquet hit the floor, petals scattering like broken promises. Her eyes, wide with hurt, locked onto Ethan's, and he felt the weight of her pain like a physical blow. "Ethan, what are you saying?" Sarah's voice trembled, but there was steel beneath it. She took a step forward, her white dress trailing behind her like a ghost. The congregation held its breath, every eye on the drama unfolding at the altar. Ethan's throat tightened. He owed her an explanation, but the words felt like shards of glass. "Sarah, I haven't been honest. Not with you, not with myself." He glanced at Caleb, whose presence was both anchor and storm, grounding him and tearing him apart. "I'm in love with someone else." The admission hung in the air, heavy and irrevocable. Sarah's face crumpled, and Ethan's heart twisted. He'd never wanted to hurt her. She'd been his safe harbor, the one who made his carefully constructed life feel possible. But that life was a lie, and he couldn't keep living it. "Who?" Sarah demanded, her voice rising. She followed Ethan's gaze to Caleb, who stood rigid, hands shoved into his pockets. "Him." Her laugh was sharp, disbelieving. "You're telling me you're, what? Gay? After all this time?" Ethan flinched. The word felt raw, untested, but it wasn't wrong. "I don't know what I am," he said honestly. "But I know I can't marry you. It's not fair to you." Sarah's mother rushed to her side, wrapping an arm around her as tears spilled down her cheeks. Ethan's parents were on their feet now, his father's face a mask of fury, his mother's hands clasped in silent prayer. The weight of their expectations, their disappointment, pressed down on Ethan, but he couldn't look away from Caleb. Not now. Caleb stepped closer, his voice low but firm. "Ethan, you don't have to do this here. Not like this." But Ethan shook his head. "I do. I've been running from this for too long." He turned back to Sarah, his voice soft but resolute. "I'm so sorry, Sarah." You deserve someone who can love you completely. And that's not me. Sarah's sob broke the silence, and she turned, fleeing down the aisle, her mother trailing behind. The congregation erupted, voices overlapping in shock and judgment. Ethan's best man, Jake, grabbed his arm. Dude, what the hell? You're throwing everything away. Ethan pulled free, his eyes on Caleb. No, he said quietly. I'm finally being honest. The pastor, a kind-eyed man in his 60s, cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Perhaps we should take a moment. But Ethan was already moving, grabbing Caleb's hand and pulling him toward the side door. The cool air hit them as they stumbled outside, the church's chaos muffled behind the heavy oak. Ethan's pulse raced, his mind a whirlwind of fear and relief. He'd just blown up his life, but for the first time in years, he felt like he could breathe. Caleb stopped short, pulling his hand away. Ethan, wait. You can't just do this and expect everything to be okay. What are you doing? I don't know, Ethan admitted, running a hand through his hair. But I couldn't stand there and lie anymore. Not to her. Not to myself. Not after seeing you. Caleb's eyes softened, but his voice was guarded. You left me, Ethan. You walked away and never looked back. Why now? Ethan's chest ached. He'd replayed that night in the rain 1,000 times, hating himself for the hurt he'd caused. I was scared, he said. I didn't know how to be the person I was with you. I thought I could just be normal. But I'm not. I never was. Caleb looked away, his jaw tight. You think you can just say that and it fixes everything. I spent years trying to forget you. I moved on. I built a life. Ethan's heart sank. Then why are you here? Caleb's laugh was bitter. Because I'm an idiot. Because when I heard you were getting married, I couldn't stop wondering if you were happy. If you were really okay with this. He gestured at the church, at the life Ethan had almost lived. I had to see for myself. And now? Ethan asked, voice barely above a whisper. Caleb met his eyes, and for a moment, the world fell away. Now I don't know what to think. They stood in silence, the autumn breeze rustling the leaves around them. Ethan wanted to reach out, to pull Caleb close and erase the years between them. But he knew it wasn't that simple. He'd hurt Caleb, hurt Sarah, hurt everyone. But he'd also taken the first step toward being honest. And that had to mean something. I don't expect you to forgive me, Ethan said finally. But I need to figure out who I am. And I can't do that without you. Caleb's expression flickered, a mix of pain and hope. You're asking a lot, Ethan. I know, Ethan said. But I'm done hiding. Caleb didn't respond, but he didn't walk away either. They stood there, two men caught in the wreckage of a life undone, as the church bells rang out behind them, signaling the end of a wedding that would never happen. The park across from the church was quiet, save for the rustle of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. Ethan and Caleb sat on a weathered bench, the same one Ethan had imagined in his mind's eye earlier, though no words were carved into it. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth and fading summer. Ethan's tuxedo felt ridiculous now, the bow tie loosened, his jacket slung over the bench's armrest. Caleb sat a foot away, his posture tense, hands clasped between his knees. Ethan broke the silence first. I didn't plan this. I didn't even know you'd be there. Caleb snorted, staring at the ground. Yeah, well, I didn't plan on showing up either. I was in town for a gallery opening. Heard about your wedding from a mutual friend. I told myself I'd just check. Make sure you were okay. I wasn't okay, Ethan admitted. His voice was raw, the weight of the day pressing down. I've been lying to myself for years. To everyone. Caleb's eyes flicked up, searching Ethan's face. You really mean that? Because you had me convinced. You had everyone convinced. The perfect fiancé. The perfect son. You were so good at it. I almost believed you'd forgotten me. I tried to, Ethan said, his voice breaking. God, I tried. Every time I thought of you, I'd tell myself it was just a phase. That I could be the guy my parents wanted. The guy Sarah needed. But it was like trying to hold my breath forever. I was suffocating. Caleb leaned back, his expression unreadable. And now? You just blew up your whole life in there. What's the plan, Ethan? You think you can just pick up where we left off? No, Ethan said quickly. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve a second chance. But I need to figure out who I am. And I can't do that in the life I was living. He hesitated, the words heavy. I need you to help me understand. Caleb's laugh was sharp, almost cruel. You want me to be your guide? Your gay Yoda? That's not how this works, Ethan. You don't get to waltz back in and expect me to fix you. I'm not asking you to fix me, Ethan said, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. I'm asking you to give me a chance to fix myself. To be honest. To stop running. Caleb looked away, his jaw tight. For a long moment, neither spoke. Ethan's mind raced, replaying the past hour of the church, Sarah's tears, his parents' shocked faces. He'd burned every bridge. But sitting here with Caleb, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, hope. Finally, Caleb sighed. I loved you. You know. Back then. I would have done anything for you. And when you left, it broke me. I spent years rebuilding, telling myself I was over you. But seeing you today, he shook his head. It's like no time has passed. Ethan's heart leapt, but he tamped it down. I don't expect you to feel the same way. I need to know if there's a chance. For us. For anything. Caleb met his eyes, and for the first time, there was no anger, just vulnerability. I don't know, Ethan. But I'm here, aren't I? They sat in silence, the weight of their history settling between them. Ethan wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap, but he knew it was too soon. Instead, he asked, What's your life like now? You said you built something. Caleb's lips quirked into a small smile. I'm an artist. Got a little studio in Seattle. Teach classes on the side. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I'm out. I'm proud. And I don't hide who I am anymore. Ethan envied that certainty, that freedom. I want that, he said softly. I want to stop hiding. Caleb studied him, then nodded. Okay. But it's not easy. You've got a lot of work to do in yourself. With your family. With everyone you just left in that church. I know, Ethan said. But I'm ready to try. Caleb stood, brushing off his jeans. Come on. Then. Let's get out of here before your dad comes looking for you with a pitchfork. Ethan laughed. A small, shaky sound, and followed Caleb toward the parking lot. They didn't touch, didn't speak, but walking beside him felt like coming home. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he was moving toward something real, even if he didn't know what it was yet. As they reached Caleb's beat-up pickup truck, Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from his mother, Where are you? We need to talk. He stared at the screen, his stomach twisting. The life he'd left behind wasn't done with him yet. Caleb noticed, raising an eyebrow. You gonna answer that? Not yet, Ethan said, pocketing the phone. I need to figure out what to say first. Caleb nodded, opening the truck door. Get in. We've got a long drive ahead. Where are we going? Ethan asked, climbing in. Caleb's smile was faint but real. Somewhere we can talk. Somewhere you can start being you. As the truck rumbled to life, Ethan looked back at the church, its steeple stark against the graying sky. He'd walked away from everything he'd known, but for the first time, he felt like he was walking toward something better. The drive to Seattle was a blur of quiet roads and golden fields, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the dashboard. Ethan stared out the window, his tuxedo jacket crumpled in his lap, the weight of his decision settling into his bones. Caleb drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift, his silence a mix of caution and curiosity. Where are we going? Ethan asked again, his voice soft in the hum of the truck. My place, Caleb said, eyes fixed on the road. It's not much, but it's private. You need a place to crash, figure things out. Ethan nodded, grateful but uneasy. He'd upended his life in a single moment, and now he was following a man he hadn't seen in 5 years to a city he barely knew. His phone buzzed again, another text from his mother. Then one from Jake. You serious? Man, you just left Sarah like that. Guilt gnawed at him, but he silenced the phone and shoved it into his pocket. Caleb glanced over. You're gonna have to face them eventually. Your family. Sarah. All of it. I know, Ethan said, his throat tight. But not today. I can't. Caleb didn't push, and Ethan was grateful. The truck rattled along, the radio playing soft indie rock, and for a while, they just drove. Ethan's mind wandered back to that summer, to lazy afternoons in Caleb's cramped apartment, painting together, laughing over nothing. He'd been so afraid then, so convinced he could outrun his feelings. Now, sitting here, he wondered how he'd ever thought that was possible. They reached Seattle as dusk settled, the city's lights twinkling against the Puget Sound. Caleb's apartment was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and high ceilings. Inside, it was a mess of art supplies, canvases stacked against walls, paint tubes scattered across a battered table. A half-finished painting of a stormy sea dominated one corner, its colors raw and turbulent. This is you, Ethan said, nodding at the painting. All that energy, all that chaos. Caleb chuckled, tossing his keys onto the counter. Chaos. Huh. Guess that's fair. He grabbed 2 beers from the fridge, offering one to Ethan. So, what's the plan? Runaway groom. You gonna hide out here forever? Ethan took the beer, the cold glass grounding him. I don't know. I couldn't keep lying. Seeing you today, it was like waking up from a dream I didn't even know I was in. Caleb leaned against the counter, his expression guarded. You keep saying that, but what does it mean? You're gay? Bi? Something else? Or are you just freaking out because your wedding imploded? Ethan winced. I don't have a label. All I know is I loved you back then. And I still. He stopped, the words too heavy. I still feel something. I don't know what to do with it, but it's there. Caleb's eyes softened, but he didn't move closer. You hurt me, Ethan. You don't get to just show up and say you're sorry and expect it to be enough. I've got a life now. Friends. A community. People who know me for who I am. You're just starting that journey. Ethan nodded, his chest tight. I know. I'm not asking you to take me back. I just need time to figure out who I am without all the expectations. Caleb sighed, running a hand through his hair. Okay. You can stay here a few days. But you've got to deal with your mess. Sarah, your parents, they deserve answers. Ethan's stomach churned at the thought. What do I even say to them? Sorry, I'm maybe gay and I ruined everything. Start with the truth, Caleb said. Whatever that is. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you owe them honesty. They talked late into the night, the conversation weaving between past and present. Ethan learned about Caleb's life as art, his coming out, the community he'd found in Seattle's queer scene. Caleb was unapologetically himself, and Ethan envied that freedom, that clarity. He wanted it for himself, but the path felt daunting. As the hours passed, Ethan felt the pull of their old connection, the ease of being with Caleb. But he kept his distance, respecting the walls Caleb had built. When they finally crashed, Ethan on the couch and Caleb in his bedroom, Ethan stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. He'd taken the first step, but the road ahead was long and uncertain. The next morning, Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Caleb humming in the kitchen. For a moment, it felt like that summer again, like nothing had changed. But everything had. His phone was a minefield of missed calls and texts. Sarah, his parents, Jake, even Sarah's sister. He couldn't avoid them forever. Caleb set a mug in front of him, his expression serious. You ready to start facing this? Ethan took a deep breath, the coffee warm in his hands. Not really. But I have to. Caleb nodded, a flicker of pride in his eyes. Good. Let's start small. Write Sarah a letter. Tell her what you can. Ethan spent the morning drafting the letter, each word a struggle. He apologized, explained his confusion, his fear, his need to be honest. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. When he showed it to Caleb, he nodded. It's honest. That's what matters. As Ethan sealed the envelope, he felt a weight lift, small but real. He wasn't fixed, wasn't whole, but he was trying. And with Caleb beside him, for however long that lasted, he felt like he could keep going. Ethan mailed the letter to Sarah that afternoon, his hands shaking as he dropped it into the mailbox outside Caleb's apartment. The act felt final, like closing a door he could never reopen. He didn't expect forgiveness, but he hoped she'd understand, even a little. The weight of her pain lingered, a shadow he couldn't shake. Back at the apartment, Caleb was prepping for a class he taught at a local community center. You want to come? He asked, tossing a paintbrush into a bag. Might do you good to get out of your head. Ethan hesitated. His world had been so small: church, family, Sarah. Stepping into Caleb's life felt like crossing a border. But he nodded. Yeah, I could use a distraction. The community center was a vibrant chaos of color and noise, filled with people of all ages painting, sculpting, laughing. Caleb was in his element, guiding students with a quiet confidence that made Ethan's chest ache. He remembered that Caleb, the one who'd made art feel like magic, who'd made Ethan feel like he could be anything. Ethan sat in the back, sketching aimlessly, watching Caleb move through the room. A young woman with purple hair approached, her smile warm. You're Caleb's friend, right? I'm Mia. He's talked about you. Ethan's heart skipped. He has. Mia grinned. Oh, yeah. You're the one who got away. Huh. She winked, leaving Ethan flustered. Had Caleb really talked about him? After all these years. When the class ended, Caleb joined him, wiping paint from his hands. You survive. Barely, Ethan said, holding up his sketch, a clumsy attempt at a cityscape. Mia said you talked about me. Caleb's cheeks reddened. She's got a big mouth. Yeah, I might have mentioned you. Once or twice. Ethan wanted to press, to ask what Caleb had said, but he held back. Instead, he asked, "What's it like? Being out. Being you." Caleb leaned against the wall, thoughtful. It's freedom, but it's not easy. You lose people. Friends. Family. But you gain others. You gain yourself. It's worth it, Ethan, but it's a fight. Ethan nodded, the words sinking in. He'd already lost so much: Sarah, his parents' approval, his old life. But sitting here, watching Caleb's world, he felt a spark of possibility. That evening, they walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the water. Ethan opened up about his family, his father's rigid expectations, his mother's quiet disappointment. They're not bad people, he said. They don't get it. They never will. You don't know that, Caleb said. People can surprise you, but you've got to give them a chance to try. Ethan stopped, the wind cold against his face. What if they hate me? Caleb's eyes were steady. Then you build a new family. You find people who love you for you. But you can't give up before you try. The words hit hard. Ethan thought of his parents, of the church, of the life he'd left behind. He wasn't ready to face them, but Caleb's words gave him courage. Maybe, just maybe, he could find a way forward. They ended the night at a small queer bar, a place Caleb called home away from home. The crowd was eclectic: drag queens, couples, friends, all laughing and dancing. Ethan felt out of place, but Caleb's ease grounded him. A man in a glittery shirt bought them drinks, toasting to new beginnings. Ethan clinked glasses, the words echoing in his mind. As they walked back to the apartment, Ethan's hand brushed Caleb's. He didn't pull away, and neither did Caleb. It wasn't a promise, but it was something. A start. Back at the apartment, Ethan's phone lit up with a voicemail from his father. His voice was gruff, strained. Ethan, we need to talk. Come home. Ethan's stomach twisted, but Caleb's hand on his shoulder steadied him. You don't have to go yet, Caleb said. But when you're ready, you'll know what to say. Ethan nodded, the weight of the future heavy but not crushing. He was starting to see a path, faint but real. And with Caleb beside him, he felt like he could take the next step. Ethan spent the next few days in Caleb's world, each moment a step away from the life he'd known. He helped with Caleb's art classes, met his friends, and listened to their stories of struggle, joy, and resilience. It was a world he'd never known, one that felt both foreign and like home. But the shadow of his old life loomed, his phone a constant reminder of the people he'd left behind. On the fourth day, Ethan sat down to call his parents. His hands shook as he dialed, Caleb sitting across the room, offering silent support. His mother answered, her voice tight with worry. Ethan, where are you? Are you okay? I'm okay, Ethan said, his throat tight. I'm in Seattle. I needed time. Time. His father's voice cut in, sharp. You humiliated Sarah, your family, everyone. What were you thinking? Ethan closed his eyes, the words stinging. I was thinking I couldn't keep lying. Dad. I'm not who you thought I was. There was a long silence. His mother's voice came next, softer. What does that mean, Ethan? Are you saying you're gay? The word hung between them, heavy and untested. I don't know exactly, Ethan said. But I know I wasn't honest with Sarah, Or with you. I'm trying to figure it out. His father's voice was cold. You need to come home and fix this. You owe Sarah an apology. You owe us an explanation. I will, Ethan said. But I need to do this my way. I'm sorry I hurt you. The call ended with no resolution. Just a strained promise to talk again. Ethan felt drained. But Caleb's hand on his shoulder was a lifeline. You did good, Caleb said. That was brave. It didn't feel brave, Ethan muttered. It felt like I let them down. You didn't, Caleb said firmly. You're being honest. That's more than most people manage. That night, Caleb took Ethan to a gallery opening. His latest work on display. The paintings were bold. Emotional, a storm of color and feeling. Ethan saw Caleb in every brushstroke. And he saw himself too, in the turbulent blues and golds. This is about us, isn't it? He asked, standing before a canvas of two figures in a rain-soaked embrace. Caleb nodded, his voice low. I painted it after you left. I was angry, but I couldn't let you go. Ethan's heart ached. He wanted to say something, to bridge the gap, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he stood beside Caleb, their shoulders brushing, and let the moment speak for itself. The next day, Ethan got a text from Sarah. I got your letter. I'm hurt, but I want to understand. Can we talk? Ethan's stomach twisted, but he knew he couldn't avoid her forever. He showed the text to Caleb, who nodded. You need to do this. For her. And for you. They met at a coffee shop in Portland. Neutral ground. Sarah looked tired. Her eyes red but steady. I don't hate you, she said after a long silence. But I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me? Ethan took a deep breath. I didn't know how. I was scared. Sarah. I thought I could be what you needed. But I was lying to myself. I'm so sorry. She nodded, tears spilling. I loved you, Ethan. I still do. But I deserve someone who can love me back. You do, Ethan said, his voice breaking. And I hope you find him. They parted with a hug, bittersweet and final. Ethan felt lighter, but the guilt lingered. He'd hurt her, and that would always be a part of him. But he was starting to forgive himself, to see a future where he could be whole. Back in Seattle, Caleb was waiting. How'd it go? Better than I expected, Ethan said. She's strong. She'll be okay. Caleb smiled. A real one this time. And you? You okay? Ethan nodded, a small spark of certainty in his chest. I'm getting there. Weeks passed, and Ethan settled into a rhythm in Seattle. He got a job at a bookstore, a quiet place where he could think, read, and start to rebuild. Caleb's apartment became a safe haven, a place where Ethan could be himself, even if he was still figuring out who that was. They didn't talk about the future, but they didn't need to. Each day was a step forward, a piece of Ethan's truth falling into place. He started attending a support group for people exploring their identities, a mix of young and old, all navigating their own journeys. Hearing their stories, some painful, some triumphant, gave Ethan courage. He wasn't alone. He was part of something bigger, something real. One evening, after a group meeting, Ethan and Caleb sat on the apartment's fire escape, the city sprawling below. Ethan had started painting again, a hobby he'd abandoned after that summer with Caleb. His latest piece, a rough sketch of two hands reaching for each other, sat on an easel inside. You're getting good, Caleb said, nodding toward the painting. You've got something to say. Ethan smiled, the compliment warming him. I'm learning. From you. From everyone. Caleb's eyes met his. Soft but serious. You're doing the work, Ethan. That's what matters. You're showing up. Ethan's heart thudded. He wanted to say it. To tell Caleb he was falling for him all over again. But the words felt too big. Instead, he reached for Caleb's hand, lacing their fingers together. Caleb didn't pull away. And for a moment, they just sat there, the city humming around them. I'm proud of you, Caleb said finally, his voice low. You're not the same guy who left me in the rain. I'm trying not to be, Ethan said. But I still don't know if I'm enough. For you. For this. Caleb squeezed his hand. You don't have to be enough yet. Just keep going. The next day, Ethan called his parents again. This time, he invited them to Seattle. They arrived a week later, their faces tense but open. The conversation was hard tears, anger, questions Ethan didn't have all the answers to. But he told them the truth. He was exploring his identity. He was sorry for the pain he'd caused, and he wanted them in his life, but only if they could accept him. His mother cried, hugging him tightly. I don't understand, she said, but I love you. I'll try. His father was quieter, his discomfort clear, but he nodded. We'll figure it out, son. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Ethan felt a weight lift, a bridge rebuilt, however shaky. He was learning that family wasn't just blood, it was the people who chose to stay, to try, to love him through the mess. That night, Caleb cooked dinner, a rare occurrence that left the kitchen a disaster, but the food surprisingly good. They laughed, shared stories, and for the first time, Ethan felt like he belonged. Not just to Caleb, but to himself. As they cleaned up, their hands brushed, and Ethan didn't pull away. He leaned in, tentative, and Caleb met him halfway. The kiss was soft, familiar, but a promise of something they could build together, if they chose. I don't know where this goes, Ethan said, his forehead against Caleb's. Caleb smiled, his eyes bright. Neither do I. But I'm willing to find out. Months later, Ethan stood in Caleb's studio, his own canvas beside Caleb's. His painting was rough, a swirl of colors capturing a moment: the church, the rain, the bench where they'd sat that first day. It wasn't perfect, but it was his. It was true. He'd moved into a small apartment nearby, giving him space to grow while staying close to Caleb. Their relationship was undefined, a slow dance of trust and rediscovery. Some days were hard, filled with doubt and the ghosts of Ethan's old life. But others were bright, full of laughter and quiet moments that felt like home. Ethan had come out publicly, first to his coworkers, then on social media. The response was mixed: support from some, silence from others, hate from a few. But he was learning to stand tall, to claim his truth. His parents visited again, their conversations easier, their love more open. Sarah had moved on, dating someone new, and Ethan was genuinely happy for her. She'd sent him a card, wishing him well, and it felt like closure. One evening, Ethan and Caleb walked along the waterfront, the same path they'd taken months ago. The air was cool, the stars bright above. Ethan stopped, turning to Caleb. I love you, he said, the words simple but heavy. I think I always have. Caleb's smile was soft, his eyes glistening. I love you too. Took you long enough to catch up. They laughed, the sound carrying over the water. Ethan felt whole, not because of Caleb, but because he was finally himself. He'd sworn he was straight, built a life on that lie, but the truth had set him free. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't over, but it was his. As they walked hand in hand, Ethan looked at the city lights, the water, the man beside him. He'd changed everything: his life, his heart, his future. And for the first time, he knew it was worth it. The end wasn't a wedding, or a vow, or a tidy resolution. It was a beginning, messy and real, built on honesty and love. Ethan didn't have all the answers, but he had himself, and he had Caleb. That was enough.